Well, welcome everybody to the last symposium of the year for the Honeybee Watch Symposia series. I'm Steve Rogenstein here in Berlin. I'm the project director of Honeybee Watch and today's host. And I'm joined by Rigo Moro, our science director, and three lovely guests that have us very excited to talk about citizen science. Today, we're going to be focused on this symposium. It's titled Spreading the Buzz, Communicating and Recruiting for Citizen Science. And we'll take a broad look at research projects that rely on people like yourself, concerned citizens, who in particular, in our case, love bees and want to help scientists better understand how these free-living honeybee populations are surviving via natural selection. And at first, through our three guests here, we're going to look at the big picture. So what is citizen science? Why do these research projects rely on citizens? When is the involvement of the public suitable for certain projects? Who gets involved? And how to find, recruit, and engage with participants. So most of our topics relate to bees specifically. However, there are a couple that are more about logistics of organizing a global study on bees. For instance, communicating and recruiting for citizen science was something that we thought would be very kind of pertinent to our audience. And we wanted to introduce our network to the ins and outs of how citizen science works. Again, hopefully inspiring some of you to get integrally involved and perhaps launch a study in your own country. If you are indeed motivated to start something locally, by all means, get in touch with us. Maybe we can introduce you to scientists in your area, to others who are interested in learning more about free-living bees, beekeeping associations, beekeepers, et cetera. We have our fingers all over the world, which is exciting and complex. But to back up just a little, citizen science projects like Honeybee Watch tap into the public's interest in and ability to contribute to research that we scientists cannot do alone. In our case, we rely on communities around the world to locate and monitor free-living nest sites, and over the course of years to understand their survival rates. And when we go and sample these colonies to better understand their genetics, their pest and pathogen loads, uniquely within their locations, as well as in comparison to adjacent managed apiaries. And this is actually part of the study of biodiversity that we'll be endeavoring for the next 3 years. But the question is, how and maybe where to start. If you have the idea of doing this, but don't really have the resources, you might feel stymied. So what we're hoping to do is, inform you of how you can involve citizens in your area, and especially how do you engage them over extended periods of time, because that's kind of the key to citizen science projects is not just attracting them, but retaining them. And how do you do that? So these are some of the issues that we've grappled with along our 4-year journey so far. And we thought that this symposium dedicated to the topic would be informative and inspirational, and that's how we got here. So we've assembled this troika of impressive guests. And what we really like is that their professional experiences complement one another, and their presentations will as well. And through the course of their 45 minutes, we're going to get a crash course on citizen science, peppered with some best practices. Just very quickly, there's a short little story that occurred that indirectly introduced us to all three of our guests. In February of 2020, I was invited to give a talk in Poland about 8 citizen science projects that represented a cross-section of nature-based and science-based research. And the idea was, through interviewing the directors and project managers of these different citizen science projects, we at Honeybee Watch, which at that point was just a concept, we would learn best practices, and we could incorporate what each of them had contributed to the conversation so that we didn't, repeat things. We didn't start from, scratch, but that we could actually incorporate their advice and make Honeybee Watch bigger, better, and smarter. And that's when I first learned about the European Citizen Science Association. However, it took many more years before we would actually connect, and today is the culmination of that with our first guest. Carolina Doran is the project manager at the European Citizen Science Association, ECSA, and their mission is to make science and research open, accessible, and valuable to everyone. And this is accomplished through three primary goals: to increase the democratization of science, to encourage the growth of citizen science in Europe, and three, to support the participation of the general public in research processes across the natural sciences, social sciences, humanities, and the arts. So Carolina will give us an overview of citizen science, what it is, why it's important, who participates, etc., thus introducing us to the basic building blocks. So Carolina, if you can unmute yourself and share your screen.
Will do. Thank you, Steve.
And I'm going to give you a timer of 14 minutes, and I'll give you a notification at the end of it that you have another minute to go.
All right. Can you see my presentation?
We can. You
Great.
ready?
Yes, I'm ready. And I'm so happy to be here and have this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about my work, not only my current work at EXA, but also the work that I did during my PhD. So this is a fantastic opportunity. So together we learn, learning through participation. Who am I? So I'm Carolina Doran, and for as long as I can remember, I have been interested in patterns of collective behavior. So during my research time, PhD and postdoc, I study many different systems and look for the rules that govern group behavior. And here you see photos of two of those systems because I think they are maybe the coolest. And the first photo is from a species of rock ants, so ants that live inside rocks. So instead of building these fancy nests we often imagine when we think about ants, they actually just find a space to live and do very little construction. The other photo is a species of fish. They are sulfur mollies. And sulfur because they live in waters that are so full of sulfur that there's not enough oxygen. So they need to live at the surface. And so because of this, predators like kingfishers find them really easy prey. So they have evolved this like mesmerizing waving mechanism to confuse the birds. Unfortunately, I don't have time to tell you more detail about this, but you will get my contact and I am happy to tell you more. For obvious reasons, I focus a little bit more on the ants, on the social insect. And during my PhD, back in the lab, we spent a lot of time coloring, making these unique markings in the bodies of ants, so that we could track their behavior and better understand it. And similar to honeybees, when a nest is destroyed or when a new nest is needed, what happens is that an individual scout will go out in search of a new nest. And when she finds something that she likes, she will go back to her previous nest and recruit another ant to come with her. And she will do this through a process called tandem running. In terms of how information is shared, this is very similar to the waggle dance in honeybees. And I have a little video of how this works to show you. So you see you will zoom in a bit, you see there's an ant leading the way to a new nest, and she knows the way, and another ant following. So basically, there's a pheromone being released that says, follow me, and then the follower ant is tapping with the antenna saying, I'm here. And they do this, follow me, I'm here, follow me, I'm here. And they do this in a really convoluted way. So they don't go straight to the new resource. They take a longer path. So this leader ant is really teaching the follow ant what there is around. And when this ant that is following agrees that the new nest is a good nest, she will start doing the same. So she will go back to the nest and recruit another nestmate through tandem running. And by this process, the number of ants in the new nests increases up to a point that it reaches a threshold, what is called a quorum threshold. And at that point, the ants turn to a different type of recruitment, which I also have a video to show you. So this is social caring. And what happens there is that the ant that knows the way will carry the ant that is just like inverted and upside down And then she obviously will go straight to the nest. So she doesn't do this like round way. She will go straight. And of course, the ant that is being carried doesn't learn the way. We know this because in both cases, we did experiments where we put them in the middle of the way. And the ones that were led to tandem running knew exactly where they were. And those that were being carried had no idea where they were. And the reason I tell you all of this is because I think this is a very strong analogy of how we as humans, much like the ants, when we are involved in the process, we learn. To me, this is the most important component of citizen science that you learn to participating. And that's what then led me to join EXA, the European Citizen Science Association, where I work now. So as Steve already mentioned, we are a nonprofit. We've been established, so we just had our 10-year anniversary. So we've been established since 2014, and we are hosted at the Natural History Museum in Berlin, the Museum für Naturkunde, and we advocate for public participation in science. So we are the home of citizen science in Europe, and we really want to make science and research open, accessible, and more importantly, valuable and meaningful for everyone. But we're talking about citizen science, and we haven't really talked about what is citizen science. So I've collected here a few official definitions for you. So let's see what they say. So according to the National Geographic, citizen science is the practice of public participation and collaboration in scientific research to increase scientific knowledge. Through citizen science, people share and contribute to data monitoring and collection programs. Now, if you go on Wikipedia, you will find that citizen science is research conducted with participation from the general public or amateur non-professional researchers or participants for science, social science, and many other disciplines. Now, we have our own platform, the EU Citizen Science Platform, and there you will find that citizen science is any activity that involves the public in scientific research and thus has the potential to bring together science, policymakers, and society as a whole in an impactful way. And then NASA will say that NASA citizen science projects are collaborations between scientists and interested members of the public. Now, definitions are really important, and it's important that we state what we are talking about when we talk about citizen science. But I don't know about you, in this context here, I don't think going through these definitions really equips me with the knowledge I need to actually conduct a citizen science project. And this is often a common discussion in the citizen science community. What is citizen science? What is not citizen science? So instead, what we did, we thought, well, the focus, instead of being on the what, maybe could be more on the how. And it's with that in mind that together with the citizen science community, we co-created something called the 10 Principles of Citizen Science. And if you scan the QR code, you will get to this resource. It's open source. It's available in many, many languages. If you speak a language that is not there, please reach out to us so we can translate it together. And these principles focus on many different domains, on involvement, the outcome, the benefits, participation, feedback, democratization, open access, acknowledgement, impact, and ethics. So we don't have time to go through all of the principles now, but I will still discuss a few of them so that you understand what is this resource. So let's see the first principle. Citizen science projects actively involve citizens in scientific endeavor that generate new knowledge or understanding. Citizens may act as contributors, collaborators, or as project leaders and have a meaningful role in the project. We often like to say that participants should be able to participate according to their own interests. So however much involvement they want to give, there should be a space for it. Citizen science projects have a genuine science outcome. And this is a really important principle because often people who consider citizen science as something fun you can do for the public. It's still science, and it should be treated as such. Citizen scientists receive feedback from the project. And this is, again, very important because it's not about free labor. You know, if we want to involve citizens, we should make sure that they get feedback on what were the results of the work that they did. And maybe one more, citizen science is considered a research approach like any other with limitations, biases that should be considered and controlled for. So saying that, you know, we are not aware of how citizens are collecting the data, that there will be a lot of problematics that with a strong methodology we can mitigate. And it's important that this is considered. But also I'd like to say that, you know, these principles are really important in putting us in the right mindset to develop a citizen science project. But these discussions of what is citizen science and what is not are actually quite interesting. And if you want to know more about it, we have other resources that we also co-created with the community. For instance, the characteristics of citizen science. This is a document, also open source. I think the QR code is in the next slide, so you can get it. It's a document that focuses on different types of projects and different ways of engaging different communities, and actually goes one step further, that it provides a set of resources that you can use in facilitating the discussions around what is citizen science and what is not. And I don't have time to read all of this in detail, but I put it here so those of you that are watching the video can now pause and have a read. These are 3 different examples of scenarios, and only one of these is citizen science. And this was something that was done also in a co-creative way, with many workshops with different members of the European citizen science community. Now, another thing that I would invite you to explore, and now would be a good time to Arrigo to put the link in the chat, is that at EXA we have many different working groups. And I don't have time to go into detail to all of them, so I prepare a little board where you can have a little snippet of information of each of them, and then links if you want to find out more. And they work very differently, and they do different work. They have different governance models and so on. A few things to notice: there's no working group on social insects or honeybees, so maybe that's something we can discuss all together. But also, you know, as I was preparing this presentation, I have to say this. I went to one of these AI tools and I tried to generate a photo. I did at least 15 tries and I could not get a bee that is anatomically correct. I get one with 8 legs, with the antennas. I mean, I tell you, I should have recorded them all. It was so enraging, and I find this so bad. And it led me to also bring up another topic that is really important in citizen science, and that is that of capacity. That when we invite a community to be part of our research projects, we cannot expect them to already have the knowledge necessary to do the research. And so it's very important that we provide this capacity. And with that, I will tell you a little bit about one of the projects we are working on at EXA, which is, we work on many projects on many different topics. And one of them is the ECS project, European Citizen Science Project, which is, I guess, our main project. And the goal is to work with an already existing community, but to widen it and strengthen it. And we do this with a lot of co-creation, capacity building, awareness raising, co-design, and work together towards developing our common platform, which is uniting the diverse voices in Europe and beyond. And this is how it looks like. Again, there's a QR code you can scan to join the platform, and you will find many different resources of different citizen science projects. You will find events of these projects. You can find blog posts. You can register yourself and put your events there, and then advertise your own projects and events. And it's still underdeveloped, so it's still time for your voices to be heard if you want to join these co-design sessions and help us build this platform. An important part of this platform that is still not looking in its final form, so we're still working on it, is the ECS Academy. And this is a place where you will find many self-paced courses on citizen science. So you will find something for beginners. So if someone never heard of citizen science, there's a course there that they can do. But if you already know about citizen science, but for instance, you want to bring it to schools or bring it to libraries or to journalists, so there's a lot of resources there. And of course, there are many domains in which this is missing, where your input would also be very much welcome. And I know my time is coming to an end. So one last thing I wanted to share with you is the importance of also measuring the impact citizen science can have, you know, in policy making, in also building communities, bringing capacity. There are so many different impacts we can bring with citizen science by involving people. And this is something we prepared also in the ECS project, which is we conducted interviews with the citizen scientists who were running local pilots on different areas, in different domains, and so that they could share their stories, and then we could see the impact from their perspective, the impact they caused with the community they were working on. So I invite you to read it. It's a really beautiful booklet. And this is my last slide, and I hope that, I don't think I needed to convince this audience on the power of working together, but maybe I reemphasize that maybe much like the ants, we have built who have built altruistic and egalitarian societies through their participatory methods, we too can achieve remarkable outcomes if we work together towards common goals. And with that, you don't need to give me my 1 minute warning, Steve, because I am done. Thank you.
Fantastic. I knew when we invited EXA that you guys were a font of resources, and wow, there's
There
so
are many
much out
more.
there. Yeah. So I encourage anybody to go visit their websites. All of those QR codes link to various places within their resources, the articles, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much information, and yeah, they're a great resource. Two things in particular that you mentioned, having a meaningful role in the project, it's critical. And, for us, for Honeybee Watch, you are the eyes and ears of the project. There are tens of thousands of honeybees living in trees all over the planet. And obviously, we don't have the resources, the time, the energy, or, the ability to visit them regularly to see if they're alive or not. So you are critical to the success of Honeybee Watch, and you definitely emphasized it. And one thing that you talked about is providing feedback. It's something that we talk about at Honeybee Watch. I can't say that we are greatly successful at it, but there are some of our research partners that have been excelling in this. And Rigo, you in particular, manage the projects in Ireland in a really great way. So maybe in the Q&A, you'll get a chance to tell us what you do. So thank you, Carolina.